All right, John. So you just wrapped things up at Henry Sibley. Just kind of give an overview about your, was it 4 or 5 years there, kind of how things went, big takeaways, what you learned, and if you were to get another job, what were some things you would do differently?
Yeah, I'm actually going to pull up my Google Docs. So one of the best things I did, it was 4 years. One of the best things I did right after I was done was I just sat down and wrote all my thoughts down and like what I liked, what I didn't like, what I would have done different. And, you know, obviously we didn't win as much as, I would have hoped. We fought, first year we won 5 games. Second year we won 9, and then we kind of dropped off and won 6 and 5 as, some players kind of went through and, it changed. But let's see here. Oh, what the hell? You're going to have to edit a little bit of this, I think, because I got to find the I think one of the things that I was happy about was I thought we did a great job with the youth program. Coming into Sibley, traditionally they lose quite a bit of kids from their travel program to private schools and whatever. And so, we put a lot of time into the youth program, developing relationships, trying to, get more kids to stay, or the ones that wanted to come, develop them to be, more skilled, and, hopefully that would boost the level of our program. We every Sunday night in the fall, like in October or September, October, and then in the spring in April and May, we worked with them, for an hour and a half on Sunday nights. And in the summer, we went 3 days a week for an hour and a half and just really hammered skills and 3-on-3 and did a lot of games based, a lot of, trying to develop basketball IQ as well as obviously shooting, ball handling, that whole thing. I thought we built some really positive relationships with our youth program and with our youth kids. And I thought it got better. The things that I thought we had some wins that, maybe didn't show up on the scoreboard. Like, for example, all of our lower level teams this year won 10 or more games for the first time in a long time. We didn't at the varsity level. And, I can put that on me and my lack of coaching, but at least we could see it in the lower levels where, like our freshmen won the conference and the year before they finished second. Our sophomore team is better than they've been in a long time, and our JV was finally winning games. And, you could kind of see that it was coming. But, again, I think that was a lot of the time that our guys put in and the opportunities that we gave them to work on their game. So I thought that was really good. I thought by the end of it, culturally we were better than my first year. And again, I don't know what happened before I got there, or what's going to happen after. But, I do know that from my first year to our fourth year, we got better. Guys really practiced hard and, did what they were supposed to do and gave their best effort. And that's, kind of all I can say. It's funny, we had one of the parent complaints was that we established a culture where doing your best was good enough. And they were upset with that because they thought it should be about winning. And I kind of like laugh and I'm like, well, I don't know what else you want. Like, the guys are doing their best. I mean, so we had that going for us.
I'm gonna build off that. I feel like, I feel like philosophically, like, good high school coaches are like +5 wins or potentially -5 wins over the course of the season. And that's probably even too much. So much of it is, like you said, you got to build those relationships. You got to get in at it with the youth level. Again, I don't know what Henry Sibley was like either before you got there. But, you just aren't going to come in there and kids are going to get 10 times better from their junior, their senior year because you stepped in the gym with them. And so I think that's so essential is that, realizing that let's get your kids to play hard. Like, that's such the most important step because at the end of the day, best coaches in the state a lot of times have some of the best players in the state, and it's such a players-based sport. So I feel like that's definitely a misconception a lot of parents have is that, well, what the heck, my kid did summer workouts and they played AAU, like, why aren't they winning games? Like, that's not necessarily a correlation. Like, your kid's nice, like, but they're not a college level player. It's hard to win without good players.
Well, a couple of things I'll say. Like, the guy before me was Lionel James, who was a Dasovich assistant, did a nice job. Like, kids played hard and they were good. He's a great dude, and he left the program in a good spot, and I hopefully built off that, and hopefully the next guy can continue to build on that. But the other part is, just being there in the summer and doing AAU is just like the ticket to get in. But I do look back this year, and I think there were probably 5 or 6 games that I look at and say, if I could have just done a little better job, we might have won. But You win some, you lose some. But there definitely was some room for growth from me. I thought we had a really good coaching staff. I'm going to go over the bad stuff in a second here. I liked who we hired. We got some, guys that really cared about kids, that taught the game. And I think that was, like a big thing for me was like, can we just get guys that care about kids and want to teach? And I think, they treated our kids really well. Like one of the cool things in our, we had almost 50 players in our program. And one of our exit questions was, I feel like my coach cares about me more than just a person. And I think of like the 50 kids, 48 said yes and 2 said maybe. There was no no's. So it was kind of cool to see that.
And that's got to be a big rock of any program, right? It can be corny at times, but you go to the high school league and the why we play stuff, which is so big within the high school league, coach education stuff, and that's it, right? Kids want to feel valued, they want to feel respected, and obviously there's going to be, you said, a couple kids who are in the maybe zone, and that could have been one thing they're hung up on their 3 or 4 years in the program that they just can't get over. But you don't have 96% of your kids say yes like that. That obviously speaks volumes to the culture that you guys had built, and maybe it didn't show up on the scoreboard, but you're playing Metro East competition. You had Apple Valley in your section for your first 3 years until this year when you came down to 3A. And so, that obviously is, at the end of the day, when you look back in 10 years, it's going to be those connections you made. And would you have liked to have won more games? Sure. But like you said, there's probably some games that you could have won if you had done things differently. But, the big picture stuff is, kids enjoy being there. Like, they enjoy their experience.
That's all the stuff that doesn't show up on the scoreboard. But the hard reality of it is when you're not a good enough coach to win those games, you just don't get to stay. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But, it's just, I would have liked to do a little better. But thought our coaching staff was good. With our parents, we had some parents that definitely didn't always love it. But in 4 years, I didn't have a single parent email or admin about me or AD or anybody else. We had no brutal blow ups or nasty emails or whatever. We had the coach of the year thing that some ex-parent did and whatever. But we bought the cupcakes for that. But
that was really cool. I thought great experience. Just great opportunity to make it.
Why not have fun?
Make a positive out of a potential negative and take the high road. And that's it's hard to do that. And we see the country that we live in and some of the stuff that we see in the news today. It's like we're so divided, but sometimes it is just take that high road and the character stuff takes over, and that was really cool to see from 70 miles away, man. That was really cool to see.
Well, hey, you gotta enjoy it, right? We enjoy what we do. I thought the off-season stuff we did, like my first year, we had 8 to 10 high school kids and maybe a dozen middle school kids in the off-season every time. And our last summer and fall, our last fall, I think we had 40 high school kids and 50 middle school kids. So we really grew that. And I think that helped us. And again, I think there was a lot of good things. But, what I wish I'd have done different is I did a poor job of establishing an identity. Like who we were going to be. And that was partially because we tried something and it wouldn't work. And instead of just saying, okay, I believe in this, here's what we're going to do, we're going to get it. I just go, oh my God, I'm doing a terrible job. I better switch to something else. We try to every year we tried something different offensively and defensively and tried to. There's no magic, and we would have been better off if I'd have just walked in year one and said, here's who we are culturally, here's who we are X's and O's, here's who we are style of play, and we're going to do this. But I didn't, and that was probably my biggest downfall. In terms of that, I wish we'd have done a better job of that.
If you were to give advice to a first year head coach or a coach maybe who has been around but his first year in a new program, is to say have your identity X's and O's, Y's, and just stick with it. Would that be one of the biggest things that you would encourage a new coach?
But I mean, let's be honest. Look at every single good program in Minnesota. Everyone has that program year to year has an identity. For how many years Dave Thorson was grinders win, right? And they grind you on D and they play hard. Or you look at Tartan and Klingsporn, who I think is one of the best coaches that the state's had, and gets more out of some of those dudes every year. And again, they're talented. We're going to defend. We're going to play hard. But there's also lesser known guys, like the guy who just got the job at Sibley. They're going to run Princeton and they're going to play a 3-2 zone, and they've got a style and they do it with fidelity. And they from top to bottom, Sibley was better than people thought they'd be. So that'd be my number one thing. It's just figure out who you are and go with it. And I just, yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff I wish I'd have done differently.
So let me tell you, I know you're big, obviously, with the small sided games, right? You've
Yeah,
presented, I don't know if it's a half a dozen times or, a few times, but,
yeah.
obviously talk to us quickly for those maybe that aren't familiar. It's kind of what your philosophy is and then what your typical practice looks like.
So, I believe the game teaches the game. Um, I just did a presentation on it, a real short one. It was me, the college coach from Canada who also coaches under 15s for Canada for their national team, and the under 15s coach for Italy. So I just really didn't belong. But, but what I talk about is this: if they can't do it, you do drills. They're like just blocked practice. If they can do it, but they're struggling a little bit, maybe you do some dummy D. But for the most part, the small-sided games is where they learn how to do it against live defense, how to read, how to make plays, how to make decisions, all the things that the game is about. Because if you just do drill, because I don't know how many times early in my career, like we do shell drill. We do it for 20 minutes and we just hammer and they would look great and they'd all be in the right spots. And then we'd go play and I'd be saying, what the fuck? We just did this.
Yeah.
We just shell drilled for 20 minutes. How come? But after that first passing cut or that first drive or that first screen, you have to practice habits in an environment that you're going to actually have to use the habits. So, which is why I'm a big fan of a lot of games based. Although when I look at my like wishing I'd have done better list, which is a lot longer than I shared. But, I think sometimes I would skip past they can't do it on air and would go like we do some reps on air, then go into small sided games and they might not be ready. So there's a fine line of like adjusting. And I think I was better in my final year of like, okay, they don't get it. Let's go back and drill it on air or dummy D it and then come back. But I think you got to spend most of your time playing the game. And the other part of it is it's engaging and kids signed up to play basketball. Kids didn't sign up.
You have 5 minutes into practice. You go 3-on-3, 4-on-4, or 5-on-5. You have 5 minutes, right? You take over my practice. I give you 5 minutes. What are you doing?
5-on-5, because that's how the game's played. Like even stuff like I know you run a lot of that. You still run a lot of that side pick and roll, right? Because you ran it 2 years ago, and pick and roll is great, but if you run it 2-on-2, then you're not learning what happens when the help comes from the backside, when it comes from the ball side, what reads to make and plays.
You better be able to score on a 2-on-2 pick and roll with that much space on the half of a court. Like it's not realistic, right? How many times do you see coaches that have bigger names and have way more success than us talk about on social media that it's not about what's going on the ball, it's going on what's off the ball, right? And pick and roll defense. So who's tagging, right? Who's one pass away? Who are they stunting? Are they trapping? Or there's so much more. What's the throwback guy doing? And it's you got to play the game 5-on-5. So obviously coaches would be like, all right, what's this guy talking about? We got to run our set play. So how do you factor maybe it's your actions, maybe it's your sets. How do you factor that into your game-based system?
So, we do a lot of and again, I'm probably not the one to talk about this because we won 5 games this year, but we would do stuff like, all right, we're going to start in a set and flow into our motion stuff. So we're going to play 5-on-5-on-5. We have varsity and JV. So we have 20 kids together. So we just go 5-on-5-on-5, and 5-on-5-on-5-on-5. But we just rotate guys through and you start with your set into your baseline.
Okay.
Are you back?
We lost you there for a second. So say that again. You start with your set and then you kind of cut out.
So or into your half court offense. So it's basically just running your offense over and over and over again. But you're doing it 5-on-5. When they know the set, I don't think you need to go 5-on-0 anymore because you're not learning the angles and what's open, what's not, and all that stuff.
So what's next for you from here? What are you looking? Not necessarily you're looking at head job, assistant job, but let's say you get a head coaching job here in a month. Obviously, we got COVID-19, and things are gonna be a little bit muddy. The water's gonna be a little bit muddier with coaching jobs and jobs. I feel like in general throughout the country. But you go in day one. What are you doing now that you've done it for 4 years? You've taken some time now away. What are you doing day 1 or day 10 or what's your 90-day whatever outlook? What are you doing?
I won't get too far in the weeds, but I think the first part is got to establish the culture and see who wants to be on board with it. I think in my experience at Sibley, I probably came in with the idea of what I wanted. And then I kind of tried to appease people and tried to like, well, hey, they're not used to this. I'm going to kind of slowly get in here. And I think that ended up just wasting time. I should have just walked in and said, okay, the people that want to do it, you're welcome to stay. If you can't be who you are, there was a great line I picked up at a clinic today. I'm actually going to share because it was that good. But it was, where was it? Be you, but align with us. So that's basically, like the gist of it. Because we were really patient with a lot of guys because, hey, I kind of felt bad for them, and again, there's more to it than just basketball, but we probably would just the guys that don't want to buy in don't need to be a part of it. And I think that's an area I probably should have done better, but just figuring that out right away. And then just honestly, like not putting in the X's and O's right away, just taking time to figure out like what do you have and what are you gonna have and how does that, because again, I know how I want to play in general, but the X's and O's can be a little bit different depending on the whatever. But then as soon as you make a decision, we're just gonna go with it. And if you can't align with us X's and O's wise or culture wise, then this isn't for you. And just being more okay saying, I'm sorry, maybe basketball isn't for you. Like this, you just don't fit what we're trying to do. I think that was probably the thing I screwed up the most.
So you see a lot of good teams down the Metro. What are some of the trends that you're seeing offensively and defensively? It's easy to see what Division I coaches and hear Division I coaches or NBA coaches or what you see on social media. I think obviously the goal for this is that Minnesota high school coaches can hear from their colleagues who are seeing similar teams and kind of dealing with the same sort of culture related stuff with the parents or with youth association. But from X's and O's perspective, offensively, defensively, what are some of the common trends you're seeing down in the Metro the last few years?
Honestly, it's a mixed bag. Like a lot of high ball screen stuff. Everybody kind of has something in their bag of some high ball screen, but there's sort of a lot of teams run that Euro ball screen, the back cut dribble handoff thing. St. Thomas probably runs it as well as anybody. And you've got a lot of teams that kind of do that. Then you've got the contingent of old school motion teams like Tartan falls into that. And I haven't, the problem is when you're a head coach, you don't get to go watch for fun anymore. I don't have time to go see like Eden Prairie this year or, or Minnehaha or whatever. Because if I was going to be away from my family, it was going to be going to watch a section game or, but a lot of high ball.
Let me tell you this. I'm real quick. I'm gonna jump in on the Eden Prairie train. So Eden Prairie played Cambridge, right? A week or so before we played them. I think it was a Saturday, and we played Cambridge on a Friday. And I got two young kids. Got my wife, and I'm just like, we don't have a lot of Saturday games. Maybe we only had 2 all year. So I'm just like, Saturdays, Sundays, like we really try to make it family time. I'm like, damn, I want to go see Eden Prairie play. And so I'm like, I convinced my wife, I go, if you drop me off, you go run to Target in Cambridge for an hour and a half, 2 hours, you come back and get me. So I arrived with a Target trip. But man, that Eden Prairie team, this is my 7th year as head coach, 9th year coaching at, at the high school level. And just the way that team moved the basketball and how selfless that they were. There was zero egos on that team. And, just even all the way down to not even getting their section final game, but they had their net cutting ceremony at their gym, and they had that moment. Obviously they were I think they ended up being a top 20 team nationally, right? Yeah. And just like that team was just something special. And they had scholarship kids, right? They had kids going D1, D2, but they didn't have any high major kids. But they were just so sound, and just the way they moved the basketball, how they moved defensively. They were a treat to watch this year.
Yeah, no, they're really, every time I've watched them in the past, I've always come on, yeah, they're well coached. Like,
yeah,
he's does a good job of being super solid with those dudes and gets them to play the right way. But yeah, so in terms of trends, a lot of side ball screen teams, a lot of like motion, right now a lot of 5-out stuff. You don't see a whole lot of Irondale's one that runs a lot, some high-low, but you don't see a lot of like 3-out, 2-ins, pound the ball inside anymore. It's a lot of pace and space spread and either dribble drive or, dribble drive or high ball, and then some traditional motion. That's, that's about it.
So do you feel like teams are pressing less in 2020 than they maybe were in 2010.
I don't know if they ever, like, down here anyway, I don't think they ever really, I don't ever see a lot of press. Like, I remember getting to Tartan and asking Klingsborn about, why don't you just get up and go full court? It's just like, teams are skilled. They're gonna break down, and and I think that makes it hard. I just don't think they've pressed for a while, because I just think I think it's hard. I think it's got to be you got to be like Bob Huggins, where that's your mentality. St. Paul Johnson was really good at it for a long time. But they're few and far between that are just gonna like press Virginia youth.
Yeah, I will. I'm not trying to make it too much about what we do. But we've had a little success here, Princeton, the last couple of years, and we played at the state tournament last year, finished fourth, and no knocking Montevideo or De La Salle. Those were excellent teams, well coached teams, very talented teams. De La Salle beat us by 39, right? They're a really good team. But the biggest takeaway that we left with that, when we played Austin in the third place game, just how effectively Fadness got their guys. Make or miss, they just got right into their press. It was just a thing of beauty, and you couldn't prepare for it. But like I said, you got to be really good at pressing, I feel like, because, basketball's a talented game. Guys are good. We have a lot of really good basketball players in our state, but watching Austin, how they it didn't make, miss, turnover, dead ball, live ball turnover. They just got right into it, and it was just a thing of beauty.
So we had to play him 2 years ago. And Fadness, I'd say, is one of the best coaches in the state. And again, there's another great example of a guy who has a system, has a culture, and just goes with it. And doesn't, he's not going to change who he is. Here's what we do. And if you don't like it, then you got to go. But, and he's very successful with it. They play that zone, they press, but the thing that killed, one of my favorite stories is, so we played them, and we're down. We were down like 2 or 3 at halftime. It was probably our best half of basketball of the year. And then they came out in the second half and just put it on us. And I remember coming to a timeout, and they just dunked on us or done something. And our kids were talking to they were saying to each other, they don't talk any shit. They don't look at you. They don't say anything. And they were more thrown off about those guys not talking shit than they were about how the score or the defense, or they just couldn't believe But again, that's Fadness. That's Fadness, and the culture he's created is those kids play hard. I mean, it's hard to get kids to play as hard as he does, and as hard as Dave got his dudes to play, or Klingsborn gets his guys to play. And even then, I mean, De La Salle, who you would argue probably De La Salle and Tartan probably are two of the better defensive teams in the last decade. Those guys don't press you all game.
Yeah. So you're on Mark's staff at Tartan for a while. Without sharing too many of his secrets, what are some of the things he does to get his kids to defend so well, or things that you learned from him that you brought with you to Henry Sibley?
So I'll say this. Klingsborn is probably the most misunderstood coach in the state in terms of who people think he is versus who he really is. Everybody thinks he's this yeller screamer or whatever. Man, you know why those kids play hard? Those kids play hard because they know he loves them. Those kids play hard because he demands it from them in a way that's positive and uplifting. And again, another guy who, this is the theme tonight, had a culture, established a culture, and if you don't like the culture, you can go. I'll never forget my first year, the year before that, or my first year, the year before, they had 2 Division I kids that transferred, and then another kid who was Division III. So these 3 guys all transferred the year before, the summer before I got there. So they were on the team the year before I got there. They weren't on the team the year I was there. So 3 Division I kids transferred, or 2 Division I and Division III kid transferred. And you'd think that would just gut the whole program, right? That was the year we won the section, and we went to the state tournament, and those 3 were sitting on the baseline watching it as we went to the state tournament.
Next guy up.
Huh?
Next guy up.
Yeah, and that's just it. Because for Klingsborn, it was okay, they just didn't buy into, what we were doing, and that's okay. And, I wish them well and want them to, be successful. But if they didn't buy into what we were doing, we'll just find more guys. And he did, and he always does. And, again, he had a standard, he had a culture, and he didn't waver from that. He had a system, and he didn't waver from that. And, even when you could have said, well, maybe, with this team you should play a little zone or whatever, but nah, we're going to do what we do. And again, I think that's, pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like that's what, obviously we won our section again this year after last year we lost, won our section, graduated 2,000 points, kid playing at Jamestown, kid playing on Hamlin, kid playing at St. John's, a couple more kids that could have played, one's playing football, one just wanted to go to school. And everyone's like, well, how are you going to change things this year? And we're like, we're going to keep running. And like, why wouldn't we? That's just how we play. We run. And like, well, you lost this, this. Like, so like our kids know how to run. And, we average 85 points a game, led class 3A in points. And, we had some lopsided games, which obviously maybe skewed that number a bit. But, when you have that, I feel like where we've had success, it's really nothing that, I've X's and O's wise. We talked about earlier in the conversation here about what you can do within a game to help win things. And maybe there's something, switching to this or running this here, there, calling that timeout. But really it's, what you're running. And, we've just kind of established where we've had success, not that we're the end all be all for success. We're just going to run and we're going to press a little bit and we're going to try to turn you over. We're just going to play fast. And that's really our mindset here up in Princeton is, I like to consider ourselves a suburban school. I know a lot of people might not. I think a lot of people cut that off at Elk River, but we play a lot. With Mississippi A Conference, we play a good amount of suburban teams. And our big thing is, like you mentioned, that maybe not as much your culture, but who you are on the court is just going to run. And we ran my first year. We got beat. We led 100 points 4 or 5, I think 5 or 6 times my first year. There was just some lopsided games where guy who was coaching with me at the time, he's not with me anymore. Matt Anderson, I know from your Bemidji days. We're just like, we just got to trust him, man. Like we know we got some talent coming. We've got to play fast because like no one plays fast in our section. No one, Hermantown played a little bit faster this year, the team we had in the section final. But I think that's just, if anyone listens to this, which I don't, it might not be anyone, but I think the big takeaways, as you said, and I would say as well with what we've had success in Princeton, is just kind of play how you got to play, however you want to play, and within reason, right? Like if you got a bunch of football kids who are 6'4", 240, it's going to be hard to go up and down the court. You got to adjust a little bit. I like that quote you mentioned earlier, but I think the big takeaway is definitely be who you're going to be and stick with it. And that's where we've had success, and we could have easily been like, crap, we lost 2,000 points. We got to slow things down. Let's run some zones. Let's run some more continuity stuff. We're like, hell no, we're going to go even faster. I saw Bill Bauman, who's I'll call him the associate head coach at Cambridge. Was at North Branch for a long time. And you got in this tweet thread. He was talking about their turnovers and, and how many they turned over teams, and they had like 7 turnovers a game or something. And you made the point, and they play fast. But I'd argue like the faster you play, the less turnovers you're going to have, because if you just think statistically, if you turn it over, 8% of the time your team passes, the more passes you have, the more likely you're going to eventually turn the basketball over. And so, you can't score if you don't shoot. So I'm going on my soapbox a little bit about playing fast, but
no, but that's
a contested 3 is better than a turnover, right? You get a chance to score on a contested 3. You get a chance to score when you're going at a 6'7" kid at the rim. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it just, just hearing you talk about that too really reaffirms what we're running. Is just like, not that what we're doing is what's great. It's just that we're bought into it as a staff and the program, and it's fun.
And I think that's it. I think that's why you were able to bounce back this year in a year when I don't think many people picked you to win the section, let alone, win the conference or whatever. And, I think that your belief in your system, or we're just going to keep doing it, was huge. And like we were texting the other day, and I told you, I felt like that was a Sid Hartman close personal friend quote, like a Paul Allen thing. But that's where you became a program. Like this year is the year you switched from, you had a good group of kids come through to now you are a program. And you talk about Cambridge. Cambridge is another great example of we're going to be who we are. We're going to play that matchup zone. We're going to run all those shooters off cutters, and we're going to screen you. And again, that's between McDonald and Bauman up there, like that's another group who, they get the most out of their kids because they just run what they believe.
Yeah, it's funny too, being up in this area. We both get a lot of some old timers old Rum River Conference games, back in the 70s and 80s, but you got Cambridge and Princeton, who are probably 2 of the more modern style teams. I'm not going to say in the state because I don't know. I'm not watching every single team play, and I don't know what 300 different teams are running, but at least in our conference, in our respective sections, and in our northeast part of the metro, modern style teams, you want to get up and down, and we saw that the first time we played them, we were at our asses kicked. We're down 32 at one point in the first half. I think it was like 64 to 32 at half or something like that at one point in the half, and ended up only losing 100 to 89. I got it down to about 8 in the second half, but it's just like we want kids to play. I know Mike would say the same thing. They'll run a little bit more stuff. They had Henry Abraham who scored 95 points a game, I think, for them this year. End up being I think the 10th guy to get 3,000, second 4A kid after Hurt, I think, to get 3,000 career points. And they wanted to run some stuff to get their guy a shot. And we didn't have that as much, or we had a guy who had to get 25 shots a game like they did. They had a dude who could fill it up, and you need to get him looks. But it's a player's game. And then you talked about that, I know, and we've had many conversations before, small-sided game-related stuff. It's a player's game. If it's 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, it's putting kids in a spot to play, right? And I think that makes our job as coaches a lot easier. So, the theme being, you had your 4 years at Henry Sibley. You admitted that it maybe wasn't as successful wins and losses wise as you would have liked. You were able to leave on your own accord, right? You were able to be like, you know what? I moved it forward, I think, a little bit. Now next guy up to take the program where they want to go with it.
And I will say is like our admin at Henry Sibley was really supportive. They still believed in our vision, and for the most part, everybody was bought in. But I would rather, again, like I've always said, I'd rather get out a year too early than 5 minutes too late. And I just felt like it was a good time we built a foundation and somebody else to come in with a little bit of a fresh, maybe a restart, but like a fresh boost of energy to hopefully carry these guys. Because I think in the next year or two, they're going to start really winning some games.
I feel like, too, from a coaching perspective, when you switch to that more games-based approach and play more free-flowing, it doesn't need to be fast. I've seen plenty of teams. You look at what Josh Orton did with Buffalo and with then Matt Willard, and that's a traditional, a little bit of mover blocker type stuff at times with a lot of their 5-out flare screen and slow things down, pack line defensively. But that team, he just let those kids play, and they weren't maybe getting up and down every single game in the Lake Conference trying to have 80, 90 possessions, but they still let kids play within the confines of their offense. And I just think as a coach, it's so freeing. I've been less stressed the last few years within games when I just know, like, I'm going to trust my kids to make plays. I mean, we have a play sheet of, like, way too much crap we find on fast draw that we do in situations that we could go to. And I actually I've been joking with my assistant coach, Dylan Nauman. Shout out to him, was one of the NBCA assistant coaches of the year this year. Does a really good job running our defense and a lot of player development side of stuff and scouting stuff as well. But, we just joke, it's like last 6 minutes of our section final game, within 3 points the whole way. It's like we can call one set. And it's just like, it was so freeing. It's like, we're going to let these kids make plays because we trust them. And, maybe December you want to get the action you want to see, and then you talk about it in film. But, man, I just think that you see coaches who have had some success, and it's not the, best way to do it, but you mentioned Mike at Cambridge. They've won their section 2 years in a row. And Mike's been coaching. He's almost got 500 wins. He's coached for a lot of years. And he's changed things up a lot of ways. And to see, you can teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, they play as modern a style of threes or layups as you can see. And he's been doing it for a really long time. So, and I think we've talked about do what you got to do. But also, if you want to change, or, especially in, I don't know how Henry Sibley's youth program runs, but, up in these parts, way up in 40 minutes out of the metro, out of Minneapolis, you kind of know what you have coming up through your youth. So you can obviously tweak things as you see fit, but just have that identity and sticking with it, I think, is just so essential. And you've hit on that.
That was not our situation. So like for example, my first year, our first 8th grade group,
Excuse me.
They, we had 9 kids that played on the A travel team. And then we had another team of like 9 that played C travel. We got 1 kid from the A team. The rest went to Cretin and St. Thomas. And then we got 3 kids, or, about 3-4 kids, maybe 4 or 5 from the C team. And that was our 9th grade group that following year.
That's crazy to me. No, that's crazy. I get it. I mean, that's everywhere down there.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate those waters with your youth association? Like, I know you do your youth camps and stuff. How involved are you with like the travel association?
I would try to get 3 to 4 games a year for every team. Some of them only got 2, but I try to go see them play, 2, 3, 4 times. I assigned assistant coach to every team, and he had to go watch them play once a month. and just trying to build relationships and get them to stay at Sibley. And that was always the challenge was, can we develop enough good relationships where, we can keep some of these guys and, or do we develop the other ones? And then we had this, this grouping of kids who would move in from another district or whatever. And the other part of it was when I got the job, and I don't know how to say this in any other way, but I just made a conscious decision that I was going to recruit every kid I could that lived within the West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, Sunfish Lake boundaries, but I wasn't going to go into St. Paul or, South Minneapolis or, Simley or Egan or South St. Paul and go try to, have kids come into our program. That just wasn't how we were going to build it. And so, so it just became about identifying the kids in our district and trying to get them to move in or, trying to get them to play. We also had a grouping of kids who, maybe got priced out of traveling when traveling was $400 to $500 a kid. They just would look at that number. We had state scholarships available and whatever, but they just look at that number and say, I don't know if I could do that. So it was always interesting who we'd get and who we wouldn't. And, but that's part of coaching in coaching in the Metro. And, I think we put in a lot of time to try to develop those relationships and, get kids to come our way. So.
I think sometimes coaches can get too involved in the youth association too. You start getting, you get a little too close and friendly with some of the parents in the youth association, and their kid comes up and they maybe unintentionally think that you're tight with them or them well, or they got your cell phone number from when their kid was in 5th grade, that you're gonna take care of their kid and they're up there. Then when it doesn't, that communication is a little bit quicker. They're a little more confident they can reach out to you if you have that relationship. Going sitting down and grinding out 2-3 hour board meetings with them throughout 3-4 years while their kids are in the youth association. So it's definitely a balancing act. I know for us, when we have a program where, for the most part, we've had some kids move in in the last couple of years, which has helped us be successful. But for the most part, we've had we kind of see who we're going to get, and you can work with those kids, and you kind of know like this group needs to work on this and this group needs to work on that. But you just got to make sure, got to keep those parents at arm's length and realize that for you and their kid and have a good personal relationship, but really it's got to be professional more with the families. And I know that's something that I would do over again if I was, talk to a first year head coach or new head coaches. You got to be involved with the youth stuff, but at the same time, you got to make sure you're not getting yourself too immersed where you stretch yourself thin. Phil Klopacki is a Sauk Rapids football coach. Been at Davis, St. Cloud State, played at St. Cloud State. He's a Princeton grad. I've got to know him pretty well through my 8 years in town here. And but we had a good conversation actually at a wedding a few years back, and he said, you just have to draw your line and say, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I'm not going to go to every single youth practice. I'm going to go to, maybe it's 2 practices a year for each team, or I'm going to go to, like you said, 3 to 4 games. I think that's so key because it's so easy for that youth coach to text you, hey, we play at Tartan this weekend. You should come watch. And okay, I will. Instead of like, no, I'm going to go to the 1 home tournament and maybe I go to 1 road tournament. Like, that's it. And so just having those expectations with youth association people, because they want to see you there, right? The parents want to see the head dog come and watch and cheer their kid on, right? Yep. And they meet, and it gets all from a positive place. They want their kid to have success, and their kid wants to see, they want to see Coach Carrier come watch them play. But at the same time, you got to have a balance that personal and professional obligations too. So I think that's one thing that I went too hard when I first took over, trying to be at everything. And I feel like when I started to pull back a little bit, like, well, you used to do this and you used to do that. And I think just being clear with those expectations too is essential when jumping into a new gig.
Mm-hmm.
Final thoughts. What's one little wrinkle, weird thing, X's and O's wise, that you've seen this year that was successful for someone? I know I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't text about this before the show. What's one little wrinkle? I'll throw one at you. One thing. We saw a couple times we saw teams put 2 on the ball, on out of bounds situations, which is abnormal. I know it kind of went through the social media circle this past season. So often we put 2 on the best ball handlers so they don't get it. We saw a couple times teams put 2 on the ball. What was something that you saw? Go ahead.
Cut out on me again. I don't know if it's mine or yours or whatever, but cut out for a second. So you had 2 on the ball. Right?
Yeah. What's one little unique wrinkle that you've seen that you might be able to gain an advantage with?
I'm thinking. I'm rolling it over in my head, thinking about what what different teams did. Again, I'll go back to Simley. I thought, they ran Princeton stuff, and they ran some really good backdoor stuff. Just throw to the high post, backdoor cuts. And when teams start doing that, now you really got to get off and be ready for that. That just opens up so much other stuff. But the other thing they did was they ran 3-2 zone, which I thought they did a good job of. Anytime it's a little bit different, I think it causes some problems.
Awesome. All right, Coach. Thanks for joining.